Before Miami, there was a plan. Ferrari would take the ADUO engine upgrade, the one designed to close the 30 horsepower gap to Mercedes, and introduce it at Monaco, maybe Barcelona. Either way, the engine that changes Ferrari's 2026 season was supposed to arrive before the summer. It is not arriving before the summer. The Belgian Grand Prix at Spa-Francorchamps is now the target. That is 5 more races with the current engine. 5 more races against a Mercedes that is 30 horsepower ahead. 5 more races where Hamilton and Leclerc have to overperform just to stay in the fight. And the timing of this delay could not be worse. Because after Miami, after a race where Leclerc led, spun on the final lap, cut 4 corners with a broken steering arm, and ended up 8th after a 20-second penalty, Ferrari needs the second half of their season to look different to the first. The upgrade was supposed to start that change. Now it does not arrive until Belgium. That is the story this video is about. Not panic, not crisis, but a very specific problem with a very specific timeline that Ferrari has to manage carefully if they want to keep the championship alive. 30 horsepower sounds like an engineering number, an abstract metric, something that matters in a laboratory but gets absorbed by other variables on a real circuit. It does not get absorbed. 30 horsepower against a car with similar aerodynamic efficiency translates directly to lap time. The estimate is approximately half a second per lap under race conditions. Half a second. In Formula 1, where qualifying gaps between the top 5 teams are measured in tenths, half a second is not a small deficit. It is the difference between starting from the front row and starting from the third row. It is the difference between an undercut that works and one that the rival drives away from. It is the difference between Hamilton defending track position on a long straight and Hamilton watching a Mercedes pull away regardless of what line he takes. The circuits where this hurts most are obvious. Spa, Monza, Baku, Canada, long straights, high-speed sections, places where raw power determines whether an overtake is possible before a braking zone even arrives. And here is the thing about the 2026 calendar. Between now and Belgium, Ferrari faces Canada, a circuit built around the long straight between the hairpin and the final chicane, where straight-line speed determines qualifying positions and defensive capability in the race. Canada is one of the worst possible circuits for a team carrying a 30 horsepower deficit, and it is the first race after Miami. That is the context for what this delay actually means. The postponement to Belgium is being reported as primarily a consequence of 2 things: FIA homologation and chassis integration. Start with homologation. Any performance upgrade to a Formula 1 power unit under the 2026 regulations has to go through the FIA's formal approval process. This is not a formality. The engine specifications are submitted, tested against the regulatory framework, and signed off before they can be used in a race. For a new architecture, and this upgrade reportedly involves conceptual and structural differences from the current Ferrari power unit, not just incremental refinements, that process takes time. Rushing it risks either a rejection from the FIA, or worse, a reliability problem in the race. The second factor is chassis integration. A new power unit specification does not just plug into the existing car. Ferrari must adapt its cooling systems, its aerodynamic packaging around the power unit, and its weight distribution to accommodate whatever changes the new engine introduces. These are not small modifications. They involve careful rebalancing across multiple areas of the car simultaneously. Ferrari has chosen to do this correctly rather than quickly. That decision probably cost them Monaco and Barcelona. It might cost them Canada. But it reduces the risk of a catastrophic reliability failure at a race where the upgrade is running for the first time, which would be far more damaging than finishing 5th on old hardware. The delay is frustrating. It is also almost certainly correct. 5 races: Canada, Monaco, Barcelona, Austria, and then Belgium. That is the stretch between now and the upgrade. And Ferrari cannot just wait. Every race in this window is a points opportunity for Mercedes to extend their lead, or for Ferrari to hold them closer than the engine deficit suggests they should be able to. The good news is that the Ferrari chassis is genuinely one of the strongest on the grid. Multiple analysts and rival engineers have pointed to the SF26's aerodynamic balance and mechanical grip as its biggest strengths. Leclerc himself said after Japan that the car feels great through the corners. Hamilton has described the chassis as a pleasure to drive in races where the energy management software is working properly. The bad news is that a strong chassis is worth less at Canada and Spa than it is at almost any other circuit on the calendar. Monaco is different. Street circuit, slow speed, minimal straight-line relevance. Barcelona has a mix of fast and slow corners that plays to chassis strengths. Austria rewards aerodynamic efficiency. Ferrari can score well in this window, but doing so requires both drivers to be at their absolute best and requires the team strategy to be error-free. Miami demonstrated the consequences when it is not. Leclerc spinning on the final lap and Hamilton taking damage from Colapinto on lap 1 cost Ferrari a potential podium and 5 or 6 points at minimum. Against a Mercedes that wins when everything goes normally, Ferrari cannot afford races where things go wrong on top of the engine deficit. Assuming the ADUO upgrade arrives at Spa as planned, the question that matters is not whether Ferrari gets the engine. It is whether the engine makes enough difference to change the competitive picture. The honest answer is that nobody knows yet. The upgrade is described as targeting the thermal side of the internal combustion engine, improvements to combustion efficiency, heat management, and power extraction from the fuel-air mixture. Ferrari are also planning to switch to slightly larger batteries as part of the package. Together, these changes are expected to recover a meaningful portion of the 30 horsepower deficit. Meaningful, not all of it. The target is to get Ferrari closer to Mercedes, not necessarily level. The difference between 20 horsepower down and 30 horsepower down is real on track. It changes how aggressive the strategy team can be. It changes how much the drivers can defend on straights. It changes whether Spa itself, with its iconic Kemmel straight, becomes a circuit where Ferrari can fight, or one where Mercedes simply drives away. There is also the question of what Mercedes does between now and Belgium. They are not standing still. Their own ADUO eligibility is different. As the benchmark engine, they have less room to introduce mid-season upgrades. But aerodynamically, strategically, and in terms of software development, Mercedes will keep pushing. Ferrari arriving at Spa with a better engine does not mean Ferrari arriving at Spa with a faster car. It means Ferrari arriving at Spa with a real chance to find out. If you want to follow every development from Canada to Belgium, you already know where to find us. 30 horsepower, 5 races, 1 upgrade that was supposed to come earlier and didn't. That is Ferrari's situation heading into the next phase of the 2026 season. The chassis is strong enough to score points. Hamilton and Leclerc are good enough to overperform the engine deficit on the right circuits. Monaco plays to Ferrari's strengths. Barcelona has enough technical variety to keep the power disadvantage manageable. Austria rewards aerodynamic balance. These are not circuits where 30 horsepower decides everything. But Canada is first. And Canada is exactly the kind of circuit where 30 horsepower decides everything. The long straight between the hairpin and the final chicane, the place where qualifying positions are determined by top speed, and races are won or lost based on whether you can defend into a heavy braking zone. Ferrari knows what is coming. Hamilton and Leclerc know what is coming. The engineers know, and there is nothing any of them can do about it, for 5 more races. The delay is the right call. Rushing a new power unit architecture into a race before the homologation and integration work is complete is how you get a failure on lap 3 in Belgium that cost you 2 race weekends instead of 1. Ferrari chose patience, that is correct, but correct decisions can still be painful ones. 20 points behind Mercedes, 5 races without the upgrade, a championship that was already difficult before Miami, and Miami did not help. Belgium is where it changes, or where we find out it does not change enough. Either way, it is the most important race of Ferrari's season. The circuits between now and Spa are not opportunities to win the championship. They are opportunities not to lose it. Hamilton and Leclerc have to make every one of them count. 5 races. The clock is running. You know where to find us.